Okay, before I begin the video, I must mention that I will not go into great detail about the variants of communism. So, they all deserve their own videos, which I will do at some point later down the line. But they will get descriptions of their ideologies, some more than others. And I will not go into great deal about all of them, and some I won't mention for the sake of time. So, with that, I hope you all enjoy the video. Now it's time to begin. Okay, before I get into the variants, let me begin with the history of communism. Even though communism as we know it was formed from the late 19th century socialist movements, the highly influential works of Karl Marx alongside the Industrial Revolution, the ideals and beliefs of communism have existed for over a millennia. Let me state that the idea of an egalitarian, classless society is very old. Going back as far as ancient Greece, with one notable movement in its history that could be described as communistic being the Mazdak movement, I hope I pronounced that right, that challenged the privileges of the noble classes and the clergy, criticizing private property and striving to create an egalitarian society. Throughout time, multiple communist communities have existed, mainly inspired from religious texts, with many religious orders and the medieval church itself sharing land and property. Communist thought can also be traced back to writers such as Thomas More, who portrayed a society based off common ownership of property. Communist thought would surface again in England in the 17th century through the proletarian religious group called the Diggers, who espoused communistic agrarian ideals, and the idea of private property would be criticized even during the Age of Enlightenment, with such minds as Jean Rousseau. And during the French Revolution, communism would begin to emerge as a political doctrine, and in the 1800s, multiple social reformers created communities based off the idea of common ownership, and this time with a less religious belief involved and more based off rational ideals. And as the Industrial Revolution advanced, many socialists began to blame capitalism for the misery of the proletariat, or the working class, that had just recently emerged. And among the critics of capitalism, there were two very important critics, Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, who in 1848 would redefine communism and popularize the term in the pamphlet called the Communist Manifesto. Okay, so I'm not gonna go in depth mention the history of communism during the 20th century. I feel that most of us would probably already have a good idea about it. So, if you do want me to go into it, mention in the comment section if you do, because it is important, but I'm on a time limit for the video, so I'm not going to go in great detail about everything. Some things were skimmed a little bit. Okay, now that we are done with the history of communism, it is time we look into the beliefs and various ideologies of communism. Communism at its core is a social economic ideology that wishes to establish a communist society which is structured on the idea of common ownership of the means of production in the absence of social classes, money, and the state, mainly in the form of a revolution, which is probably the biggest difference between communism and socialism. The fact that communism is more revolutionary and focuses on a more violent way, sort of trying to get rid of capitalism, while socialism can go either reformist or revolutionary. Now let's get into the variants, starting with Marxism. Marxism, developed by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, is in many ways the most prominent of the ideologies and considers itself to be the embodiment of scientific socialism, with Marxism seeing communism less as a state of affairs and more as a expression of a movement. At its core is the materialist concept of history, believing that the key characteristic of economic systems throughout history has been the mode of production, which has been changed by class struggle, with an example being capitalism due to the Industrial Revolution. Another important part or concept is the idea of socialization over nationalization, with nationalization being viewed as state ownership of property, where socialization is actually control and management by society. And due to this, many Marxist groups label the Soviet Union as state capitalist due to the issue of nationalization. Leninism is the political ideology made by Vladimir Lenin. At its core, there are a few ideas. One idea is the idea of democratic centralism, where party free speech is recognized legitimate until policy consensus. Revolution is also another key concept, with it being viewed as the only way to overthrow capitalism, at least in the eyes of Lenin. One more concept is the idea of dictatorship of the proletariat, which is a government controlled by direct democracy and elected workers' councils. Marxism-Leninism is the ideology made by Joseph Stalin. It is also the most well-known ideology due to Stalin putting in a lot of Marxist-Leninist governments. Some of its main concepts are the ideas of central planning, the one-party system, and the socialism and one country idea, along with others, with Maoism being more of a form of Marxist-Leninism with Stalinist parts in it. Trotskyism is the ideology made by Trotsky, and it is also one that differs greatly from the last two. Some of its main concepts are the need for an international revolution and a dictatorship of the proletariat based off democratic ideals, which contradicts Marxist-Leninist ideas such as the one-party state, or the Stalinist idea of, political oppression and, its other values. There is also libertarian Marxism. Libertarian Marxism is not a single ideology, but a broad group of communist ideologies that put a larger focus on the anti-authoritarian aspects of Marxism. These views emerged alongside left communism in opposition to Marxism-Leninism. And with that, we are done talking about the communist ideologies, at least some of them. I am trying out something new, which is why this video is cut off and a bit strange in different places. And well, I hope that you like what I said. I feel like I could do this better, so I do plan on doing this in the future. But that is going to take a while since I have other plans, such as a video about anarchism, or anarchy for short, that I plan on making, that will be more detailed and go a little bit more in depth about some of the variant ideologies within it. And I also have a video planned to talk about the OS 10 manifesto, which is about the annexation of Cuba in the 1850s. So watch out for those videos. And if you want to see them, please subscribe, click the notifications icon, and like. That helps the channel a lot. So, bye everyone.